Rick Grimes, the warrior-like man who refuses to be broken, is still alive. I'm sure it's the hope shared by countless fans of The Walking Dead, but what tugs at the heart is that Rick is trapped in a place called the Civic Republic. In his desperation to escape, he even went as far as cutting off his left hand, yet he still failed. Though Rick felt a profound sense of hopelessness, he didn't give up. Over time, Rick adjusted his strategy. Instead of attempting another escape, he chose to bide his time as a soldier, laying low and building trust. 1 year slipped by quietly this way, and at last, Rick got a rare, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. That night, his team was assigned to pilot a helicopter to a chemical plant to gather supplies. There were many soldiers deployed, each with different objectives. Rick was stationed at the far left, in charge of opening the door. Rick wanted to take this opportunity to escape completely. In his backpack, he'd prepared a zombie that was similar in build to himself. The corpse's face had been battered beyond recognition, and its left hand had been cut off. Rick then removed his helmet, tossing it aside, along with a pendant engraved with his name and serial number. Okafor had said the living have no place to escape, but Rick's plan was to make everyone believe he was dead. To make it foolproof, Rick placed the corpse where there were more zombies to create the illusion that he'd died in action. Then, he dropped 2 timed grenades to ensure that the explosion's aftermath would incinerate the body once he'd escaped. Who would be able to recognize this corpse afterward? Every part of Rick's plan had been meticulously thought out. As long as nothing went awry, success was nearly guaranteed. Rick quickly pulled out a rope tied to a bullet, which he threw into the sewer drain. A quick tug opened the manhole cover. Rick's heart was pounding in his chest. His plan was on the brink of success. Now, he just needed to throw the grenades to trigger the other 2 on the ground. Luckily, Rick's uniform was made of durable material, so he was uninjured, even though the noise had attracted a few more zombies. But they weren't a real concern. Rick was itching to execute the plan without a hitch, yet he couldn't ignore the life of a little girl nearby. The grenade he'd already armed had to be tossed into the sewer instead. He decided to rescue the girl first. The little girl, terrified, was darting between zombies, dangerously close to being caught. Rick's current plan was simple: kill the zombies as fast as possible, then take the girl and get out. He should still have enough time, but suddenly, a zombie lunged at Rick from behind, tackling him to the ground, and that's when he heard a faint, whistling sound nearby. When Rick finally managed to kill the zombie and look up, he saw that Pearl had arrived.
I saw the whole thing! Come on! It's okay.
Copy. Resource extraction complete. Tablets unloaded.
Pearl admired Rick and knew what he was up to, but she didn't expose him. She kindly reminded Rick to quickly report in over the radio to avoid drawing any suspicion.
We can't be out here.
You said to ask for help. I'm asking.
I am helping you. He would have found you. And whoever you're running to. He knows about you, Grimes. Come on.
Rick felt stifled. He had been so close to success, just a single step away. How could it have gone wrong? Later, Rick quietly sneaked into Okafor's room as soon as he returned. Pearl's words had reminded him of something crucial. Even if he managed to escape, what if the military discovered his past? Although he'd been cautious over the years, he still needed to be absolutely certain. When Okafor realized his predicament, he didn't panic. He even seemed remarkably calm. Okafor didn't hold back and said directly, "Everything you've done has been under our surveillance, including those messages you once sent out in bottles." On the back of the stationery was the name Michonne. "The woman you sketched on your phone, that's her. I know all of it. And that child, is she your daughter?" Rick felt his heart sink. His worst fear had come true. They knew more about him than he had ever imagined. Okafor truly has the aura of someone in power. He didn't care one bit about Rick's attacks, and instead provoked him further by saying, "In this world, there aren't many people left alive. If you escape, we only need to search the area where you were last seen to find useful information. Do you think killing me will increase your chance of success? Big mistake. You're my responsibility. If it comes down to it, they'll send me to kill you, Michonne, and anyone else you know, all to keep the Civic Republic hidden." Okafor wanted to continue speaking, but Rick kicked him and shouted, "I don't care about your Civic Republic secrets. I don't want to know why you come back covered in blood every morning, and I definitely don't want to know where those helicopters are sent to bomb. I only want to be with my family. This city doesn't mean a thing to me."
Did what I did to let anyone choose anything from me.
You made the choice You live for those people in that city because you got nothing else but your duty. Percentages and yields, A's and fucking B's. Some goddamn good soldier with nothing.
Rick's words infuriated Okafor, and he struck back immediately, taking Rick down in just a few moves.
I lost everything! I bombed Atlanta, and I bombed Los Angeles, and I was en route to do the same to Philadelphia!
Okafor's words contained a mountain of revelations. He had bombed Atlanta and Los Angeles. Does anyone remember how Fear the Walking Dead showed Los Angeles being bombed, and how Madison's family barely escaped on Victor's yacht? Back to the point, it could be said that Okafor, in the name of the Civic Republic or what they considered their own national duty, indiscriminately bombed and slaughtered hundreds of thousands, even millions, of survivors, including his own wife. In other words, Okafor now resembles a walking corpse himself, numb to it all. After taking so many lives, there was no way Okafor could find peace, which was why, when Rick had held a knife to his throat, he appeared so calm. Perhaps, deep down, he even longed for release, but Rick's taunt calling him nothing more than a good soldier with nothing left hit a nerve.
I tried with you, Rick. I tried.
Sorry.
What are you apologizing for?
Just let me go.
No.
In that moment, Rick felt utterly powerless, with no way out. He thought he might as well let Okafor finish him off. Living without hope was its own kind of suffering. Okafor didn't go through with it. Instead, he holstered his gun and urged Rick not to be so stubborn. He suggested Rick stay and fight for a greater cause, adding, "I'm assigning you and Pearl to logistics. In the next 12 months, headquarters plans to turn a university into a forward base, and you two will be in charge of that. In a year's time, all soldiers and top officials will gather there for a summit. As project leaders, this could be your chance to join the inner circle. It's a stepping stone, the start of a path to real power."
Power. That's the thing. You already have it.
Rick then returned to his room to rest, reflecting on Okafor's words. Just then, a knock sounded at the door. Before Rick could get up, Pearl walked right in and told him to check out the news. This part might be confusing, so here's a quick explanation.
Civic Republic, Major General Beale initiated a CRM reconnaissance mission to ascertain the status of Omaha, and they have learned that we are now an alliance of two. The city of Omaha, one of the 3 surviving cities on the continent.
The Civic Republic is a large city with a population in the hundreds of thousands. Recently, they discovered 2 other massive survivor bases, one in Portland and the other in Omaha. The Omaha base had been converted from a university. The Civic Republic sent emissaries to propose an alliance, something both Rick and Pearl were aware of. But in just a few days, news broke on TV that Omaha had suffered a zombie attack, claiming 90,000 lives. Rick and Pearl weren't fools. None of this could withstand serious scrutiny. It's not hard to connect the dots. Remember what Okafor had just said to Rick?
You're gonna help convert a college in the Cascades to a forward operating base over the next 12 months.
It was clear that this university referred to Omaha. Perhaps the Civic Republic had proposed an alliance with Omaha but wanted to assume control. And when Omaha refused, they were conveniently hit by zombies. Rick had occasionally seen Okafor return in the mornings with a mysterious, blood-soaked squad. No one knew what missions they'd been on. Was that blood from zombies or from humans? In short, the Civic Republic wasn't as benevolent as they seemed. They cared only about their own people. The Civic Republic held too many secrets, completely inaccessible to those at lower levels. Pearl was feeling a bit outraged. She could guess the real truth behind Omaha's downfall. She then told Rick, "Remember that little girl we rescued? She used to live with her family in a museum, fully self-sufficient and relatively safe. But one day, zombies suddenly broke in, and everyone was killed. She survived by hiding inside a statue, covered in zombie blood. As she moved through the place, Pearl became more and more emotional as she spoke. She suddenly couldn't tell what was right and what was wrong. The zombies breaking in was already suspicious, and then the Civic Republic military just so happened to arrive to search for energy resources right afterward. How could there be such a coincidence? Pearl urged Rick to stop trying to escape, to let go of everything outside, and stay to work alongside Okafor to rise to the top and eventually transform the entire army. Otherwise, the world would be ruled by only one force, the Civic Republic. She reasoned that this was also a way to save more innocent people. Rick shook his head. All he wanted was to go home.
I wouldn't have miscrimmed. At least there's one more good man in this world. One more good man to try and save the world. Whether he wants to or not.
That night's conversation left Rick deep in thought. He had no interest in getting tangled up in these messy affairs. Is it so hard for him to want to go home? Despair spread through him, and his hand instinctively reached for a shard of glass, contemplating ending it all, but in the end, he let it go. He spent the whole night reflecting. Since going home seemed an impossible dream, he decided he might as well stay and do something meaningful. From then on, he and Pearl threw themselves into following Okafor's orders, handling logistics and preparing for the summit planned for the next year. Only if he and Pearl rise to the leadership level and work closely with Okafor will they have a chance at changing the ecosystem of the Civic Republic. 10 months later, through their hard work, the university at Omaha had finally been transformed into a frontline base. Rick's work is getting better and better, only during rare idle moments would he think of Michonne and Judith, but he had already done all he could. The next day, the squad went out on a mission, with Rick piloting the helicopter and Okafor in the co-pilot seat. Okafor was clearly pleased with Rick's progress. He hadn't misjudged him. He believes that one day he will be able to change the current state of the Civic Republic. But as Okafor began to reveal a secret to Rick, disaster struck. An explosive round hit Okafor square in the chest. Rick quickly radioed for help, requesting an emergency medevac. But before he could finish his sentence, the explosive round detonated a second time, blowing Okafor to pieces. The shockwave impacted everyone on the helicopter, leaving them dazed for a long moment before they finally regained their senses.
Report! Okafor! KIA! Right seat down!
Before Rick could finish speaking, yet another explosive round struck the helicopter. It was unmistakable they were under attack from an unknown enemy.
Taking fire! Fuck out!
The chopper finally crash-landed. Rick was unharmed, but enemies were likely closing in fast. He immediately pressed the radar to send his coordinates back to headquarters, then armed himself along with the surviving teammates, preparing to fight. For the first time, the mighty Civic Republic military was at a disadvantage. They moved to retaliate, but more grenades came at them. The problem was they hadn't even seen a shadow of their attackers. All they could do was fire blindly toward the source and attempt to flank them, but things took a turn for the worse. Another grenade landed, sending the three of them into a dazed, disoriented state. A few seconds later, Rick started to come to, still in a haze. Just then, he saw a figure approaching one of his teammates, slitting their throat with a long blade. Rick looked back, a cold sweat breaking out. Forcing himself to regain his senses, he crawled forward, reaching desperately for a gun. If he could just get to it, he'd be safe. But just as Rick's hand brushed the gun, it was kicked away. The person held a knife to Rick's neck and removed his helmet, but the instant Rick's face was revealed, the mysterious figure stumbled backward in shock. In that instant, the world seemed to fall silent. The attacker was dressed in a padded jacket, steel helmet, and wielded a distinctive katana. Who else could it be but Michonne? Rick was stunned. He couldn't believe his eyes. Could this really be happening? Or was it a hallucination? In the next episode, we'll explore how Michonne came to be here, armed with such powerful weapons, and the long, harrowing journey she undertook to find Rick.